All right, good morning. We'll go ahead and get started. Today is June 16th. It is 11:03 a.m. and this is Coffee with Community Services, which is Alta California Regional Center's weekly service provider meeting. My name is John Decker. I'm the Director of Community Services at Alta, and as usual, I'll introduce some of our staff that we have on and go into our agenda. So I will start off, and I know we've got folks on vacation, so good to see so many folks that are here right now. We've got 53 folks on right now. So good morning to Alicia, our HCBS specialist, and good morning to our QA specialist. I see Scott. Hey, Scott. And Dan Kilmore from Community Services. And let's see. I see Reva's name there. It's on my front page. So Reva from one of our client advocates is on there. Jolana is on this morning too. All right. And I see Rima this morning. Good morning, Rima. And let's see, I see from Alta, Jessica, another one of service coordinators, client services manager, Dana is on. Good morning, Dana. And I see Kanisha as well, client services manager. And Shirley from community services. Good morning, Shirley, and Christy Schaefer as well. And our client employment specialist, Carly. Good morning, Carly. And community services manager, Helen is on. And I see Leah, and I see my assistant Zach from Community Services, and Beverly as well. I see Cindy Lay from Client Services Management, and I see Tracy Brown, Associate Client Services Director. Good morning, Tracy. And let's see, I see Adriana, good morning, from Community Services, and Gary. And let's see, and Jennifer, good morning, Jennifer, our Client Services Director, and Michelle as well. Let's see, Rowena from Client Services Manager, good morning. And our other Community Services Manager, Jordan, who supervises our Specialized Services and Supports Unit. And let's see, and I see Shamir on this morning as well. Good morning, Shamir. And Cultural Diversity Specialist, who you guys got to meet last week. And Jan Bonner, I see on there as well. Good morning, Jan. From another one of our service coordinators. I have Veronica from Woodland as well. All right, so we're gonna jump into our agenda here real quickly. So we did get a word of the week from Rima, and so I'm going to ask if she would be willing to do that today. And then we have updates on upcoming events. We have upcoming vendor forums. We have the upcoming Micro Enterprise Fair. We have the DDS employment work group that's coming up. We have an update on the state budget. We can talk a little bit about our experiences as a regional center doing our first Pride Parade last week. And then just as a reminder to folks that we are closed for the Juneteenth holiday on Monday as well for Alta. And if there's anything else, we will jump to it. If you have specific things that you want to discuss as well, please don't hesitate to go into the chat there. And happy Father's Day weekend. My children are gone this weekend. So Father's Day with no sons. I have one kid in Ecuador and another one backpacking up in the Immigrant Gap Wilderness area, something like that. And so happy Father's Day weekend to folks as well. All right. So Rima, can I start off with you first as well?
Sure. Yep. Sounds good.
Okay, I got a spotlight, Rima.
Yes, I'll wait.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hello, good morning, everybody. Happy Father's Day. And also happy celebration. Oh, Juneteenth celebration. So, fire. The sign is fire. You wiggle your fingers and it goes up like the flames of a fire. Goes up, fire. So let's talk about Deaf Culture 101. So I wanted to remind folks that deaf people, typically we're the last ones to know of what's going on, whether an emergency, a fire, an earthquake, a flood, rain, tornadoes. I know they don't really happen here. But typically deaf people are clueless up to what's going on, and that will lead to death, which is unfortunate. So I wanted to talk today about there's TV and radio warnings. So that still doesn't bring enough information for the deaf people. TV is better There are requirements that are set with the flashing lights of the TV when there's an emergency, and they are open captions as we read it across the screen. There is some slow improvement there with emergency warnings. But how would you, as the hearing community, support us by not forgetting us, by not communicating with us? That's how we're forgotten. So when there's an emergency, just send out a text, send out an email or a message letting us know. You know, everybody is talking about it, and then we are usually the last to know, like, oh, wait, we forgot to tell so and so. Because we don't hear those incidental conversations that are going on when something happens. And then also equipment for the deaf. There is fire. I know most equipment is sound based, right? Fire sirens, but also we have some visual based. There's strobe lights. And then if you know if there's any deaf and hard of hearing clients, maybe they don't have the equipment in their home, and remind them to reach out to me so they can get that life-saving emergency equipment. Red Cross, they do provide free bed vibration equipment, and you can order it in a variety of places. But if you know somebody that needs it, please make sure that they reach out to me. And we want to make sure that all of our deaf and hard of hearing clients are protected as much as possible, and to prevent their death and fires in their home. And so they know what the emergencies are. So thanks, guys. You're on
Thank
mute,
you.
John.
Oops, I see that. Thank you very much for that. I want to speak about our regional center. I'm going to leave Rima spotlighted for a moment here too, because even for our own regional center, right, we have needed to figure this out. And have we done a perfect job? Absolutely not. In Rima's position, we needed to figure out where to physically put your cubicle, right, Rima? So that you could be positioned to see the strobe. And that was not something that we had thought about when we said, oh, we're going to have a hoteling model where people can sit wherever they want to in our building. Well, in this case, we needed to put in, we have what well, basically a rear view window or a big, or excuse me, not window, excuse me, a mirror, a rear view mirror that is in the cubicle. And then also it is right next to where that strobe is. And I wonder if other people are looking at hiring more individuals that are deaf in their agencies, looking at ways that you can transform your office to be more friendly and accessible to deaf employees is something that, we have a deaf and hard of hearing specialist here at the regional center. She can give you great input about those types of things. So again, just this is a fantastic resource for our regional center to be able to have someone with this type of expertise. And obviously, Rima brings a lot of energy to it as well. So
This is Rima. That's a good reminder, John. If you need a consult to come out to visit your location to help you figure out some safety issues, please reach out to me anytime. I'm more than willing to come to give you some feedback and to figure some of those logistics out for the deaf and hard of hearing. And then figure out what equipment you may need to order as well. So please reach out at any time. Not only fire strobes, but also having a variety of disasters, right? There's shootings that happen. So how do we make sure that people know what's going on to keep people safe, to get the messages out as soon as possible? And we always need something, right? So there's things that we just don't think of, and for one population or another, please reach out to me and we can figure that out together.
free consulting for service providers. So right on. Thank you so very much, Rima.
You
All
betcha,
right.
John.
Okay. So I now want to get into our agenda a little bit. And I know I started by saying we have some upcoming events. And so we have two things that are kind of going on. We have obviously our DSP collaborative activities, which are fantastic. And so real quickly, like I like to do all the time, I'm going to share my screen and pull up our DSP website. And So one thing I just want to note is that I really will say that you guys as service providers have embraced this free opportunity to be able to have this job board. Again, just looking at Sacramento County, I think we have 38 different providers that are now signed up just for that county. El Dorado County, Nevada County, we have, again, quite a few folks that have put their listings on there. And I will also say that statewide, this is getting more and more attention, the DSP collaborative that's going on. There was a presentation done yesterday at the Association of Regional Center Agencies statewide meeting of all the executive directors, and Lori Benalis and Tony Anderson from Valley Mountain Regional Center gave a presentation on the DSP collaborative and also the DICE job fairs that were going on as well. I know we had another one down in Lodi yesterday, and Carly was able to go down there, and Gary was down there too, I believe. So, Gary and Carly, you want to give us just a little update on, about how many folks attended? I don't know if anyone that is here right now was there. We did encourage service providers to participate in both of them, especially if they serve kind of the lower part of our county as well. So, Carly, go ahead, and I'm gonna spotlight you because I want to make sure you show up on our video.
Thank you. Yeah, so we had, I don't have the exact numbers from BMRC, but we had, I think we had 30 something vendors there. I think last I heard there was 35 vendors maybe. And then as far as job seekers, I didn't get a number how many they had signed up or had signed in. But we had a steady stream of people coming through. Wasn't quite as well attended as the one in Sacramento, but there is still a fairly steady stream of people coming in throughout the event.
Awesome. Again, I really appreciate Gary and Carly participating both in the one we did here in Sacramento, and then also down in Lodi as well. I understand that our HR department was there too and doing recruiting, and I know some of you, the client services managers that are actually on here today, participated in the one that occurred last month down on Lemon Hill. So that was a fantastic site, the Lemon Hill, with having the ROP classes right on site to be able to funnel people through. I saw Michelle Ramirez in the comments from CBIM indicating that you guys were able to get an applicant from it. You want to share a little bit about that, Michelle?
Yes, so it was a really good turnout. We did have towards the end, I was there with the Stockton office, and they were able to squeeze me in their table. And towards the end, we had an applicant that met the qualifications. We were able to do an in-person screen, and we're scheduled to interview her next week. So yeah, we're very excited for that.
Oh, that's awesome. That is fantastic feedback. Again, Lodi is a smaller place, right, than Sacramento is, and you may not get the same type of draw as people that are coming in. But I know are putting a lot of effort behind getting these job fairs going, and we definitely want to support Valley Mountain. As I was meeting with Tony Anderson yesterday afternoon, and mentioned possible other locations down at VMRC, and certainly I'm interested in discussions about further meetings up here. I know further job fairs up here. I know, I believe it either came up in our provider advisory committee previously, but, there's some of the folks that are part of our group that's working on the fairs. It's, representatives from your provider advisory committee. And I think we really need to, let's talk about the next, location of where we want to do this. Again, we don't get a lot of folks from Marysville and Yuba City that are necessarily logging in on this call in the morning or really participating a ton in it. But that being said, we have a large and growing population up in that area. And that is one of our under-resourced areas significantly. And it's a large population center too. And so I know that is certainly an area where I have an interest at looking at doing a future job fair for our community. Placer County, certainly there's a lot of interest in doing something up in Placer County as well. But I think this also shows us that, having a job fair where we're really trying to get a lot of providers there, making sure that we have a location that can really support with the draw of people coming into the job fair as well. But that being said, with the challenges that folks are facing with the workforce, being able to get your names out there and get some applicants and get some interviews is awesome. And don't know how many vendors I've talked to that have said, oh, I've done these job fairs and have gotten absolutely nothing out of it whatsoever. And so I'm pleased to hear that these are coming together, and hopefully this can be the beginning of many more of these opportunities. Carly and the team that have been working on the job fairs, they've been able to do them pretty cheaply, relatively inexpensive when you look at the total budget for our initiative here. So I think, especially with partnerships that we have as well, maybe this is something that we can look at kind of trying to regularly provide for our communities. We do have, basically the framework of a contract to support the DSP Collaborative website for free for our service providers through 2028. But that being said, there's a whole lot of other service providers in the state that are interested in either being part of this website or maybe having their own website as well, where their service providers can post their jobs. And it's really just specific to regional center vendors to really support regional center clients getting those in-person supports that they need, which we can't do. And again, our argument for all of this is that you can't deliver HCBS services if you don't have the staff to be able to do it. You cannot individualize services, you cannot specialize them if you do not have the staff to do it. Service providers will always default to more congregate activities when you don't have the staff to be able to support individualized programming. So that's our argument for it. That's why I know that the Valley Mountain Regional Center was actually able to get even more money this year to support the DSP Collaborative. And that's how, between last year's funds and this year's funds, right now we have a plan to be able to fund our activities through 2028 and still keep it cost-free for the service providers. So right now, what we're looking at is the website itself and some of the metrics that are tied to it, wanting to ensure that we're really, because we've been promoting job fairs, but now it's really promoting the websites, because we didn't really want to do a ton of promotion for the website until we had the buildup of the people posting their jobs on there. But now we have so many jobs on there. So I kind of see that as the next phase for us, as well as really trying to get the word out there related to the website. And with that, I know that, we talked to Sac State a few weeks ago when they were here and talking about, for example, having the DSP Collaborative, website in, all of those at the universities, at those departments where, we might be drawing staff from, out at the junior colleges as well, so that they're aware of this opportunity. So, because again, we could be getting a lot of people right out of high school that might be able to qualify and work immediately in some of the roles as DSPs as well. So, so that is going on. Let's see, Carla, we have Micro Enterprise Fair coming up. So do you have that flyer handy? No, I'm going to share my screen for that one and show the calendar. You have the flyer for UC Davis. I'll have you do that one in a little bit. Okay, so Micro Enterprise Fair is June 22nd. I'm going to share my screen so everyone can see it on our events calendar. How cool. That's the tea people from last year that I bought like all kinds of loose leaf tea from. I hope they come back this year.
And I got a succulent from them and it hasn't died yet. I'm very proud of myself.
It hasn't been a whole year yet. It was only like 7 months. So we'll see. So what is a Micro Enterprise Fair?
So our Micro Enterprise Fair is an opportunity for us to help promote our clients who own their own small businesses. So right now we have, I think 18 or 19 clients who have signed up to have a table there. So we still have a little bit of space, not much. It is filling up, but we can still squeeze in a couple of vendors, a couple of clients. If you have anyone else that wants to join, it'll be on June 22nd in the Brenda Smith and Redwood conference rooms. I've taken over the Redwood conference room as well. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Anyone who is going to have a table can get there at 9:30 to set up. It'll be lots of fun. We're going to have some refreshments, music playing. It'll just be a really fun event for us to support our clients who own their own businesses.
Awesome. Yeah, again, and for our staff as well, this is a fantastic opportunity to be able to come through and see what we've got going. I think we're going to have DDS in the house too on that day, right?
Yep.
And Health and Human Services Agency is going to be here as well that day, and so they'll be able to see our clients in action running their businesses. I'm going to stop sharing real quick, Carly, and then I'm going to ask if you can share, please, for the UC Davis Redwood Seed Program. This is also a kind of we want to advertise for the upcoming Provider Advisory Committee, right? Because we've got a presentation coming up too.
Yes, so Beth Foraker, the program director, will be presenting at the upcoming Provider Advisory Committee on June 13th. But the UC Davis Redwood Seed Scholars Program is officially vendored with the Regional Center as of June 1st. They are vendored for room and board for what they call their Living Learning Lab under 107. Community integration training services for their weekend activities under service code 063, and then independent living services under service code 520. This is an all-encompassing program, so clients who attend, they'll have purchase of services for all of these programs. And it's kind of a wraparound residential program where they will be receiving their college education as well. It's been a long time coming, a lot of interest all across the state. So we're really excited to finally have the vendorizations complete.
Thank you. This is a plug for the Provider Advisory Committee that is on July 13th, I believe.
Yes, July 13th. Beth Foraker will be attending and sharing more information about the program in general, what they're doing, what their mission is, a bit about their curriculum.
And I think hopefully Lindsay already got that that request for the agenda from Lisa West. So so please, try to attend the Provider Advisory Committee. We're going to give a presentation there all about this program. It's an interesting program. It's an independent living skills program in essence that you're learning. It provides a college experience for individuals, does not provide college credit. You do not receive a college degree for participating in this program. You are similar to like an international student that might be auditing classes. You will have a transcript that has some UC Davis classes that are on it, but you are not considered to be an enrolled. You're considered to be attending the university, but not enrolled, or something to that effect.
Yeah, something like that. Not quite sure how that works, but something like that.
We had to get the attending part of it kind of figured out because, as we mentioned, this includes room and board for their Living Learning Lab, which is the only program now in the state of California that has a paid room and board option available through the regional centers. This was something that we were unsure about vendoring initially because there's nothing else like it, and we also know that that service code was not a waiver billable service. But in our meetings with the Department of Developmental Services and discussing it with them, we discussed kind of what our options were, and we did not have any grounds to not vendor them, and we should not be not vendoring people if we don't have grounds to do so that are founded in regulation or statute. So there is a tremendous amount of interest in this. There's been a number of fair hearings that have gone on related to this program and as well, and so many are interested in now there being a vendorization for it with the regional centers. So additionally, we're going to be looking at doing a surprise, Carly. We're going to be doing a presentation, I think next month, to all of the directors of client services from all the regional centers and the community services directors as well, so that they are aware of what is contained within this vendorization. So, but for all of you, you get a preview of that because you are invited to the Provider Advisory Committee meeting, which is going to be next month. So thank you very much for that, Carly. You can go ahead and stop sharing that. And let's see here. Let me go over to, Carol, you have a question? Yes, go ahead, Carol. Uh-oh.
I know there's
a raised hand. Yes, go ahead.
I know there's something, I'm not exactly sure what, going on with Sierra College as well through maybe one of the employment grants. Wondering if that's going to be anything similar as far as that program being vendored with the
10107, did you say?
That is similar. They will not have a 107 service code at this time. They do not have,
It's not a college or university.
yeah, they also don't have a mechanism for having a residential component. They did recently receive, yes, they did recently receive a housing grant to build some dorms. So they are hoping that in the future they can add that component into it. But at
Oh,
the-
okay.
yeah,
They
so-
used to, yeah, I thought Sierra College did have dorms. They used to, they must have gone by the wayside at some point.
I believe so. I believe that they're not currently being used as dorms anymore, or they sold them off. Yeah, but at this time they don't have dorms, but they are they did receive a grant to build them. So they are interested when that happens to add that component to it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
We have in the last newsletter, we do have an update on the Sierra College program, and then also in this next newsletter that's going to come out probably July 5th. Yeah, it'll probably be July 5th. When that one comes out, there's actually a press release that has gone out from Sierra College about our employment grant, and so we're going to attach the press release to the end of our newsletter when it goes out to everyone, and it'll be translated widely as well. And that's about our employment grant. We also have the Transition to Independent Living program that we are looking at doing on campus as well. And that program is different from the employment grant, but it's so similar, isn't it, Carly? We have a lot of meetings with Sierra College and their consultants about this stuff. So that project is coming along as well. Sierra College has now hired a program manager for that program, and we're on track to try to get that up and going by the January term for Sierra College.
Yes, so we're hoping that they will be vendored sometime this fall, so that clients can get their purchases of service in and get registered for enrollment and whatnot.
Excellent. And then it looks like you just shared something in the chat. Is that the flyer for UC Davis?
Yes, that's the UC Davis flyer that I just shared.
Awesome. Okay, thank you very much, Carly. Much appreciated. And again, thank you, Gary, as well, for going out to the job fair yesterday. Much appreciated. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is upcoming meetings. And so we have our transportation vendor forum that is coming up next week. That is going to be on June 22nd from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Highly recommend our transportation providers participate in this meeting. We're going to work on providing some updates on kind of some statewide issues, like, for example, the transportation vendor rates and what's going on, what we've heard from the Department of Developmental Services as relates to that. And then we are also going to be talking about the regional center's transition to utilizing a transportation broker for the scheduling of transportation for clients that participate in service code 875, which is closed transportation, and Ruby service code 880, which is the additional component of transportation that's added on to day programs, etc. And so a couple different things as it relates to this. We're going to have this initial meeting on June 22nd, talk about it with our transportation providers. We're going to schedule a follow-up meeting with the transportation providers and the broker for early mid-July. So probably like another 2 or 3 weeks from now. We're working on the implementation plan at the regional center, and then we're going to open a big vendor meeting to kind of everyone, because it's going to be a change of process. You're going to be again, the idea being, rather than having our in-house transportation coordinators that are the ones that are finding the routes and scheduling them, we will have a broker, in essence, that we will be working with as a regional center that will be responsible for that. And so instead of doing our previous process that we had, our transportation service requests, we'll be implementing a new process at our regional center with our new vendor that will be handling the scheduling and routing. And again, we hope this allows the regional center to be that much more responsive to our service providers, because as we keep growing and growing and growing, Our transportation has also needs have just gone up and up and up. And an example that I gave to my staff was if you looked 7 years ago at the first 3 quarters of the year at what we spent on transportation, it was $13 million. And if you looked at it for this year, what we spent on the first 3 quarters, it was $33 million. So from 13 million to 33 million in 7 years. That's a big jump in what the needs have increased, and our regional center needs to be able to keep up with just this huge growth that we are having. And so with that, we feel like this will be a good next step. So we're going to be having the Transportation Forum coming up June 22nd for transportation providers. So just want to make sure folks attend that one. Let's see here. I want to indicate, let's see, the employment work group. Do we have any employment work group members? Any members of the GDS employment work group that are on right now? Or anyone that regularly participates in that meeting? I believe June 26th is when we have our next upcoming one with the Department of Developmental Services. My understanding is right now, at least big activities of the employment work group are still trying to define, in essence, the parameters of DDS's big employment pilot project that they are doing. And then Carol Watillo, I just because you just commented on the other thing, I wonder if you might raise the question that you've been sending in via email to us. I don't know if it's going to apply to other folks as well, but I know we're trying to get clarification on CIE incentive payments as well from the department too, right?
Yeah, I don't know that the employment work group will be talking about that, but I did have a chance to talk with Ernie at the department a little bit more yesterday, and they're hoping that that information will be forthcoming. Hopefully, he thought maybe by the end of this week. And the question is whether organizations are for the extra CIE incentive payment. So once you have 4 people who have gotten a job, then the 5th one, there's an additional incentive. Originally, it was conceived that that was agency-wide. There's some discussion at the department of whether that's by vendor code or by agency, like by EIN, by business. So they are working on that. With services being, held capped at having 30 people per vendor code or vendorization number or whatever, that could artificially restrict those incentives if they didn't do it agency-wide, which wouldn't be the intent of the extra incentives. So they're looking at that, and I think there's just some pieces of it that become cumbersome depending on which way you go with that.
Hopefully we'll have some updates from the department and something official. I think one of the concerns was kind of like similar to the DSP workforce surveys, right? Where it didn't matter if you had a great big huge agency and submitted 1 million DSPs, or if you had a smaller one, you qualified for the same reimbursement payment, right?
Right. So in that respect, they're saying that your one EIN, you get one payment, but then on the other incentive, it's going the opposite way. That seems a little confusing, understandable, but because of the reimbursement amount. But we shall see. Hopefully, I mean, everybody who was on the work group understood it to be agency-wide. So not sure when that changed, maybe when they were starting to make the documents and thought, wait a minute, how are we going to do this? But some of those questions were brought up in the work group that worked on that. So, and we're also still waiting on the documents for reimbursement for ACRE training and CESP training. I think also still waiting, or I haven't heard on whether or not the stipends for DSP training
Bilingual?
and
Yeah.
bilingual stuff. I don't think those are out yet either, are they?
They are not.
Yes, so waiting.
Oh, so I guess I
The
can give that
department is
update.
very busy.
Yeah, well, this is just everyone knows it's a little tough time of year, right? And this has been an interesting budget, period here. Big swings in revenue projections, like from the beginning of the budget process to where we're at right now, certainly impact things. And so I will say, just as a comment, because I'm the co-chair of ARCA's employment, group, and Employment First has not gotten off the way it should have or could have over the last decade or so. And so I will just say, from our regional center perspective, anything that we can do to provide further incentives to providers to create more and more of these opportunities and to support our clients through their competitive integrated employment, I think we're going to be right there as a regional center. But ultimately, DDS is the one that makes all of these decisions. And so certainly hope that we get something, at least feedback back soon for folks, because people are wanting to get this before the end of the fiscal year, if I remember correctly, right, Carly? Like, we want to get that, in before the end of the fiscal year. So
Yeah, I was just saying our vendors are hoping to get it in before July, so we're hoping that we get an answer.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it was, and that's the frustrating part, is that there's going to be all these new initiatives and new things, and we haven't even been able to implement the things from last budget year or 2 budget years.
Two budget years ago now.
Yeah.
Some things. Yeah. No, absolutely.
And unfortunately, incentives are not the way to fund long-term successful outcomes, but it's what we have right now. So we'll continue to hopefully fight for those to be as beneficial to people as possible.
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid. It's not a systems change type of thing. Well, with that, does anyone want to hear about the new money for the system while we're at it? Talk about the budget a little bit. Let folks know where we're at. So let me shift over to talking about the budget real quick. I can't say a ton of definitive stuff about the budget because I like the way ARCA said it yesterday. We have a budget. We don't necessarily have the budget. And so we have what the Senate passed and gave to the governor, but we know that there are still questions out there about a few different things. And so let me just share real quickly my screen. I am not an expert in this whatsoever, but the people at ARCA are, the Association for Regional Center Agencies, and at ARCA, Daniel has been there for quite some time. So this is the process for California's budget, and I've kind of been sharing these things with you since January. January, we went over the release of what was in the budget. We talked about the hearings that went on. Jennifer Bloom, who's on here, had an opportunity to testify in one of the hearings. I testified in one of the hearings as well for the state Senate. A number of our service providers have done things like public comment and provide testimony as well. Many of the advocacy groups, that goes on. And then there's a revision to the budget that comes out. And then we start seeing what the trailer bill language is going to look like, the bill that will come out along with the budget. And then from there, again, more meetings with the subcommittees, and now we're at early June. So we had final negotiations and the legislative leadership and the deal, and they struck a deal, and now it goes over to the governor. And so that's kind of where we're at with the process. I am going to stop sharing my screen real quickly and share my other screen and try to give you a little bit of a kind of a high level overview of the type of things that you're going to see. Again, these are not new things. I don't have really anything new to talk about as it relates to the budget, but in the chat, if you look, you will see I have put a link in there, and this is to the Senate budget agenda for their hearing that they had. And let's see, share. I see in the chat we have a comment about the DDS workforce survey and not getting a copy of your password yet. So let's not forget to talk about the DDS workforce surveys, and what the status is for people. Okay, so Department of Developmental Services, I put this link in. So are you guys seeing this on your screen, the budget? All right, I see Beverly already nodding her head. Perfect. So 1.1 million for reduced caseloads for children aged 0 to 5. This is the ILS rate study model change. So you can see that it's fixing the rate study for ILS. Provider minimum wage increases. The new autism services branch at the Department of Developmental Services. $12.7 million to modernize fiscal and case management systems for regional centers. So that's the UFIS and CERMS that we've been talking about, the Consumer Electronic Records Management System. $10.5 million to develop new residential homes for individuals with highly complex needs. We have $1.6 million for 15 additional regional center specialists for dually served foster youth. 5.4 to align California's Department of Developmental Disability System with federal home-based, community-based services requirements, and 6.2 million to implement standardized procedures at regional centers for intake, initial intake, assessment, individual program planning, and vendorization. Evaluate the availability of common services and supports for individuals served by regional centers, report on intake timelines and outcomes, and address barriers that inhibit access to generic services. In the coming weeks, there's going to be additional information that's going to come out with the signing of the budget that's going to get into the specifics. Then the trailerable language is going to come more clearly into focus as well, so we will know what we will be operationalizing. I am very sensitive to the comment that Carol just made that we still have not operationalized things from 2 budget years ago. And that is certainly a concern as we look at adding, the new priorities that come up. In the meantime, we have other things that we're focusing on as well. For example, we have new trainings that are required of our service coordinators because of some regional center measures that are in place. So we know that, we've got some of those activities that are coming up as well. We're looking closely at our population of individuals with sub-minimum wage and the outcomes for those individuals that were previously receiving sub-minimum wage, kind of where they're at now, or have they transitioned? Again, really looking at the current data systems that we have. It is so important that the state of California, as we have this, exponential growth and the desire for real transparency about what goes on, within our system, that we just have much better ways of gathering data and being able to share data. And so certainly understand frustration from many service providers. A service provider that might have a social rec grant, an employment grant, and an HCBS grant, and all 3 of them are administered differently by the Department of Developmental Services. That can certainly be a challenge. And so again, modernizing some of the ways that they handle these things, I think, and especially data and communications, will significantly help us as we just continue to grow as a regional center system. That being said, I still think that we are going to hit 30,000 clients at our regional center before the end of the calendar year, if you include intake as well. So again, we're growing. We were at 1,200 net growth. But again, our clients with developmental disabilities are living longer and longer. They have much better health outcomes than they had even even a generation ago compared to now. And so individuals with developmental disabilities are certainly living longer, and we're making a lot of people eligible. Our intake department, our clinical department are just extremely busy. One of the, and to talk about that, and talking about another one of these budget areas here is the $6.2 million to implement standardized procedures at regional centers for intake, assessment, IPP planning, and vendorization. I will tell you that I'm certainly working on the vendorization side of things on the statewide level, trying to make sure that we have not only similar documents, but also similar processes. Some of you will work with multiple regional centers. Some of you attended our public meeting that we did for CBIM just a couple weeks ago. And in that meeting, we talked about the fact that CBIM is vendored different ways at different regional centers and how that can be a challenge having to go through that process. And especially when, you're looking at doing a similar service from regional center to regional center. So in many ways, we're going to be looking at ways to operationalize all of these requests and providing a lot of support to the Department of Developmental Services, because the charge is now kind of laid in their lap with what appears to be the new funding that is going to be set aside for these things. So I know Alta will be very involved in the IPP discussions with our executive staff. We're already involved in the intake discussions with Camellia, our clinical director. So stay tuned for more information about that. I can only see this, I'll be honest with you, as beneficial to service providers to have really clear pathways to vendorization and a very clear set of expectations, maybe across multiple regional centers where you might be providing, very similar services. But again, it's more than just the documents. It's really how you handle it and process it as well as a regional center. Well, we're also dealing with, the workload issues. For our department, and some of you should be aware, and this is a good update for folks, that we didn't have a ton of people trying to become newly vendored for services during COVID-19. That was just not something that went on a lot. We had a kind of a downtick in new vendorizations. But prior to that, we were getting, quite a few applications that were coming in. And I will just say now that it is, I don't like using the term overwhelming, but there is a amount of requests that are coming in for new vendorizations that have really caused us to have to look at a lot of our processes in the community services department. Not only have we had to add a number of new staff, but also just in how we are communicating internally as well, with our accounting department and with case management. While we're concurrently doing a lot of these activities as it relates to the new vendorizations, we're also dealing with the services that have been brought back, in the last 2 years, right? So the social recreation services, the non-medical services, and everything else. Having that, large time elapse between those services, and now with the push that we have for really to get the services out there to our clients and making sure that they have those pathways, there's just a processing challenge that exists at the regional center for the amount, the volume, up to 41 new requests for new vendorizations, in one day for social recreation, will kind of overwhelm anything. When before we might have had 4 or 5 new vendorizations a month that we did as a regional center. So there's just a lot of processing that goes on. Our service coordinators have really had to pick up a lot of responsibility when it comes to doing parent reimbursements for services and things like that. And now even looking at rideshare opportunities and having to have additional discussions about that. And so I will just say this too, and we've got, certainly managers on that have been around quite some time, but that was a discussion yesterday at the statewide meetings as well. And I was talking to a executive director at a regional center, and he and I were managers together back at Sonoma Developmental Center and moving clients out of there. And we just talked about what it's like being a service coordinator now, as opposed to what it was like being a service coordinator before, with, all of the new changes that are constantly having to be implemented in things. So, we try to ask our service providers to be as patient as possible with our staff as we try to implement these changes. And we know that we're always going to be trying to be mindful to be patient with you as our service providers as well, as we go through all of these, changes and opportunities that are coming up as our system is changing and growing so rapidly. So let's see. I do want to touch on the community resources work group. Did we have any folks that were at the community resources work group? Any of our service providers that were at that one that are interested in chiming in? If I think Carol Watillo is, I know, part of that group, but I don't know if anyone else is on that's part of that group. It sounds like there was quite a discussion about housing opportunities and things like that. I'm going to share my screen real quickly so folks can be aware. I know I always talk to you guys about housing stuff, but that's kind of a big priority for our regional center. So I am going to drop into the chat. This is the PowerPoint. This gives you a great statewide view, I think, of what's going on for housing development with the regional centers. And so I'm going to drop the PowerPoint link into the chat. And as I scroll down here, I unfortunately was not able to attend this meeting. I was talking with Tiffany Andrade from the Department of Developmental Services in advance. And so My understanding from the last community resources work group was that they really wanted to talk more about housing development statewide and make that a big priority for the Developmental Services Task Force. So the presentation here talks about what is multifamily housing. They went into that. I see that they pulled a very nice picture of Mirasol Village, which is our housing project here in Sacramento. For that, the Department of Developmental Services was able to join me at the grand opening a couple weeks ago, and that was very enjoyable. They go into the projects that are currently being developed, which you can see Alta's 3 projects that I talk to you all about all the time are on right here first, and then you can see some of the other projects that are going on throughout the state of California as well. So there's a lot of activity from the regional centers. Some regional centers, you know, like GGRC's got 3 of them going on just like we do. And then there's some that don't have any at all yet right now. I believe there's 7 regional centers that don't have any multifamily housing projects in process. And then there's some projects that are complete. I think ours is going to come over to this as well because we have our first clients that have moved into that one too. Additionally, there's the reappropriation of funding, and that's 6 projects for 5 regional centers. That's was for 10.75 million. So these were fiscal year 2020, 2021 funding that never got utilized because of COVID. And so they said, hey, legislature, can we reappropriate that money and use it for this upcoming fiscal year? Because we have some awesome multifamily housing projects that we want to be able to fund, but we ran out of money to do it. And one of Alta's projects is one of those projects. So there was 6 projects for 5 regional centers. Alta is one of those 5 regional centers. And this is our project in Lake of the Pines that we have been talking about. So this is our Nevada County project that we are looking at doing with Chelsea. And all goes fine and the governor's budget is all signed. We're hoping that we can get a letter of commitment from the Department of Developmental Services for that project. And then that will put us up to 4 going on for our regional center, which is pretty awesome. And so we're looking forward to that. Going through, there was some questions that came up, and I just want to touch on it real quickly. And maybe we can talk on it a little bit more because I need Jordan. We need to start thinking about our priorities for next fiscal year for our CRDP plan. And there was a discussion in here. There's a discussion about data and how to track data on housing through the electronic record system. And then there was a discussion about HDOs for accessory dwelling units. And then could accessory dwelling units be used for enhanced supported living services? So it sounds like there was a presentation discussing about enhanced supported living, which is a model that Alta had worked to develop with the STEP agency, and I believe has now expanded to like 6 agencies, Jordan, I think 5 or 6 now, I think, that have different enhanced SLS, or Carol might know that answer. I think we've got five agencies maybe now.
We have 5, yes.
5, and I think On My Own did a program request to do it too. So I think that might be the next one that is looking at getting vendor to do that. So with that, just real quickly, and I want to take time to talk about it next time because just planting a seed. We have these very large residential properties that we have purchased over the years through our housing developer organization, Brilliant Corners. These are typically anywhere between 1 acre and 5 acre properties. Dan Kilmer has stepped and touched every piece of wood that went into those homes and every little piece of sod that got laid out on the grass. And so with that, over the years, we've developed all of these, and they've got all this land on these properties that are not being used. And so the Department of Developmental Services this last year approved regional centers to begin building accessory dwelling units on these properties. So in essence, imagine that we've got this care home at the front part of a 5 acre parcel or 4 acre parcel or 3 acre parcel, and we build a new building in the back so that we can have individuals rent that out through supported living. So they would not be a licensed facility, would not be anything like that. We've been able to get this through community care licensing, and it's something that's already gone on. There's a model in Los Angeles that's been doing it. We are very well situated at our regional center to develop a whole lot of these if we want to. I don't think it would not take us long to take a look at all of the properties that we've acquired in our counties here and figure out how many of those might be able to have an accessory dwelling unit added on. And adding accessory dwelling units onto properties for like zoning, things like that is really no issue at all nowadays in California. But my understanding is that they seem to have figured it out with community care licensing as well. And so that is like the key to this possibly being a real amazing opportunity. So maybe next time when we have coffee with community services, maybe we can talk with vendors a little bit more about, that idea, because I'll be honest with you, we haven't talked about it at all. We have not talked about ADUs and putting them on, existing, licensed care home properties, but this is a way to provide really affordable housing for our clients that might live in supported living. And if it's completely separated from, the residential facility that's there, it makes sense. So we'd love to talk about that a little bit more. I really like the topic that came up. And then, enhanced supported living, is something, or what we call deflection supported living was what we called it in the beginning, because that was what the rates we had were deflection, SLS, are something that, may make sense in a model like that, where you have, proximity to other resources kind of nearby as well. So certainly we can talk more about that in future meetings, but I appreciate that the department is making the idea of really serving individuals with complex needs outside of the more institutional looking settings like the Star homes that have a lot of state staff around them, or like the new intermediate care facilities that they were looking at putting there on Fairview's campus. So again, I like the way they're moving towards with this. So Dan and Jordan and Christy and the folks from the CPP unit, let's kick that around a little bit. I'd love to be able to talk. Yeah, I'd love to be able to talk with our vendors about it and just say like, hey, we have possibly identified this many properties, and because we're going to need our community backing on this if we want to make this a CRDP priority for next year. We need we need to have our public meetings. We need you guys to be on board with this idea, which means we might need to talk it out a little bit, because I'm still wrapping my head around having a licensed facility on the same property. So again, I don't want to lose out on this opportunity because other regional centers have already started it, and we've been talking about it for quite some time. And no other regional center has the type of homes that we have with the extra land around them that could probably do this. So the way we can. So it's another opportunity for our clients, hopefully. Let's see. That's it. That's all I have for the agenda for today. Happy Friday, folks. Happy Father's Day weekend. Juneteenth. Whoa, sorry. I have to share my screen real quickly and share that we had the best time ever while we were at our, let's see, I'm gonna maximize that. We were out at the Pride Parade and we had an absolute blast. Shamir came, you guys got to meet him last time. And so our staff, we walked along the parade route. We had a fantastic time. You can see our executive director, Lori, right there. Some of our community services staff, service coordinators, family members. It was certainly a blast. And speaking of a blast, and I don't know if it'll do this, I wonder if it will share my video. Is it working?
We see movement. Yeah, we can't hear it, but we totally see it.
That's all right. You missed our singing, and that's okay. You didn't need to hear all that. All right, so that's it for the day. Juneteenth holiday on Monday, folks, and we'll look forward to seeing people next week. Take care. Have a great weekend. Appreciate y'all.